She never thought her usual afternoon at Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden would end in confrontation. The roar of motorcycle engines shattered the tranquil atmosphere, and in moments, Major Sarah Cooper would find herself surrounded by the Shadow Riders, the most feared outlaw gang in the Pacific Northwest. Before we dive into today's story, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and if you enjoy stories of justice being served, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got another incredible tale waiting for you tomorrow. Now let's begin. As their scarred leader towered over her wheelchair, his leather cut casting dark shadows across her face, she felt her combat instincts stirring beneath the calm exterior. But what these dangerous men didn't know, what no one in Silver Creek knew, was that they were about to discover why some veterans are more dangerous sitting down than most people are standing up. They thought they could intimidate a disabled former intelligence officer. They never imagined they'd stumbled upon the keeper of America's deadliest military secrets, and some mistakes you only make once. Quick pause before we continue. Tell us where in the world you are watching from. If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode will leave you speechless. The crisp autumn breeze carries the scent of pine through Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden, where the late afternoon sun casts long shadows through the meticulously maintained rows of flag-lined paths. Major Sarah Cooper guides her wheelchair with practiced precision between the memorial plaques, her weathered hands moving with the fluid grace of someone who has learned to make adaptation look effortless. At 42, she carries herself with the quiet dignity of a woman who has served her country with distinction, both as a military intelligence officer and now as a mentor to younger veterans struggling to find their path home. A stack of classified briefing documents rests securely in her leather messenger bag, their contents known only to a select few with the highest security clearances. She's been reviewing them in preparation for tomorrow's closed-door session with visiting Pentagon officials, where she'll brief them on an operation so sensitive its very existence is denied by 3 separate intelligence agencies. The peaceful garden, with its subtle security cameras and restricted access, has become her favorite place to prepare for such meetings. Other veterans move through the garden's winding paths, some attending physical therapy sessions at the adjacent VA facility, others finding solace in the quiet community they've built here. Sarah acknowledges them with subtle nods, recognizing the unique understanding that exists between those who've served. Her position as the facility's senior intelligence advisor makes her a respected figure, though few know the full scope of her ongoing work with military intelligence. The first distant rumble of motorcycles seems almost innocuous, a common enough sound in the mountain town. Sarah's hand pauses over a document, her trained senses immediately noting the aggressive engine pattern. Other veterans notice too, their conversations faltering as the rumble becomes a roar. Through the garden's ornate iron gates, the Shadow Riders materialize like dark specters against the golden afternoon light. Their matte black bikes gleam with menacing custom work, their leather cuts adorned with grinning skull patches that mark them as members of the gang's elite inner circle. 8 riders pull into the garden's parking area in a practiced formation. Their leader, Marcus Reaper Kane, cuts his engine first. The sudden silence feels more threatening than the noise. Sarah watches as other veterans begin moving toward the VA building, some casting concerned glances her way. She calmly secures her documents, her movements measured despite her racing mind. 20 years of intelligence work has taught her how to read a situation, and everything about this one screams coordinated intimidation. Time to go, she murmurs to herself, but before she can maneuver toward the nearest exit, Kane dismounts his bike with predatory grace. His second-in-command, a heavily tattooed giant known only as Ghost, flanks him as they approach. The remaining riders spread out, blocking the garden's main pathways. Through the facility's windows, Sarah sees staff members reaching for phones, but she knows local law enforcement will take precious minutes to respond. Her hand brushes against her bag, feeling the weight of not just classified documents, but 2 decades of secrets that could reshape the global intelligence landscape. Some of those secrets involve organizations that would love to know the location of certain Shadow Riders' hidden operations. Well, Kane's voice carries across the garden, dripping with false friendliness. The famous Major Cooper. Heard you've been asking questions about our business operations. He gestures at her wheelchair with mock concern. Don't get up on our account. Sarah positions herself strategically, angling her chair to keep all riders in view. Years of adapting to her disability have taught her to use terrain to her advantage, and the garden's layout offers both challenges and opportunities. This is a restricted area, gentlemen. Veterans only. Ghost circles around, his movement practiced. Funny thing about restrictions, Major. They only matter if someone's around to enforce them. His eyes drift to her messenger bag. Speaking of enforcement, we heard you've got some interesting files. People would pay good money for the kind of information you handle. Sarah's mind races through scenarios, calculating angles and escape routes while maintaining her calm exterior. The garden's security cameras are capturing everything, but the Shadow Rider's presence here suggests they either don't care or have contingencies in place. What they don't realize is that she's been monitoring their organization for months, gathering intelligence on their connections to certain foreign interests. The autumn wind picks up, sending leaves skittering across the memorial plaques. In the VA building, staff members are urgently speaking into phones, but Sarah knows that by the time help arrives, this confrontation will have already reached its conclusion. What the Shadow Riders don't realize is that they've just walked into a spider's web, one that's been carefully woven by someone who has spent her entire career anticipating and manipulating situations exactly like this. Kane moves closer, his scarred face twisting into a predatory smile. Let's discuss your retirement package, Major. Time to decide if you want to do this the easy way. His hand rests meaningfully on his leather jacket. Or if we need to show you why people in Silver Creek know better than to cross the Shadow Riders. Sarah's mind shifts into operational mode, the same calculated focus that kept her alive during 3 combat tours. Behind Kane, she spots Marine veteran Thomas Chen, carefully recording everything on his phone from behind a memorial pillar. Inside the VA building, Dr. Patricia Rivera, the head psychiatrist and a former Navy medical officer, is speaking urgently into a secure line, one that connects directly to certain intelligence agencies. I don't discuss operational matters, Sarah responds, her voice carrying the quiet authority that once commanded elite intelligence teams. Her wheelchair's position, seemingly vulnerable in the open garden, is precisely calculated. But I'm happy to discuss why the Shadow Riders have suddenly taken an interest in classified military intelligence. Kane's smile falters slightly. Ghost moves closer, his massive frame casting a shadow across Sarah's chair. The remaining riders maintain their positions, but Sarah notices their formation has a gap. Rookie mistake, she thinks, remembering similar tactical errors she once documented in foreign insurgent groups. Not asking for a discussion, Major, Kane's voice hardens. We know you're briefing Pentagon brass tomorrow about certain operations. We also know what's in those files would be worth a fortune to the right buyers. So here's the deal. You hand over your credentials and access codes, take a nice payoff, and enjoy your retirement. Otherwise. He gestures around the empty garden. Accidents happen, even in secure facilities. Sarah adjusts her chair slightly, noting how Ghost automatically shifts to maintain his position. Amateur, she thinks, he's telegraphing his training. Tell me, Mr. Kane, does the name Operation Silverfish mean anything to you? The question catches him off guard. Behind his practiced intimidation, she sees a flicker of recognition. Inside the VA building, Dr. Rivera has reached someone important. Sarah can tell by how the staff has suddenly stopped making obvious emergency calls and started moving with purpose. Should it? Kane asks, but his tone has changed. Sarah's question has triggered something, made him uncertain. Good. 3 months ago, your organization began moving unusual cargo through the mountain passes. Sarah continues, her voice conversational. Interesting timing, considering certain foreign intelligence activities in the region. The kind of activities that make 3-letter agencies very, very interested in local motorcycle gangs. Ghost's hand twitches toward his jacket. Sarah notes the movement, but keeps her focus on Kane. She can see his mind working, trying to understand how this wheelchair-bound veteran knows about operations that should be completely off the radar. You've been watching us? Kane's voice carries a dangerous edge now. No, Mr. Kane. I've been letting you think no one was watching you. There's a difference. Sarah's hand rests casually on her wheelchair's arm, her fingers tapping a subtle pattern that the garden's security systems are programmed to recognize. Did you really think you could move that kind of specialized equipment without attracting attention? The only question was whether you were simply criminal entrepreneurs or something more interesting. Through the garden's gates, she spots more bikes arriving. Reinforcements Kane must have called when he set up this confrontation. The Shadow Riders are nothing if not thorough. She'll give them that. But thoroughness isn't the same as intelligence. You're bluffing, Ghost growls, moving to block her view of the gates. You're just a disabled vet who pushed too far into things that don't concern her. Sarah allows herself a small smile. The shipping container that arrived at Port Andrews last week, the one with the modified manifests? Check your phone, Mr. Kane. Check what's happening to those accounts you thought were untraceable. Kane pulls out his phone, his expression darkening as he reads something on the screen. Sarah knows exactly what he's seeing. Certain financial algorithms she put in place months ago would have activated the moment the Shadow Riders entered a secure federal facility. What did you do? Kane's voice has lost its predatory confidence. I created a failsafe, Sarah replies calmly. Right now, every piece of data I've collected on your organization's activities is being processed by systems you can't reach. If anything happens to me, if those files in my bag disappear, if I don't enter certain codes at certain times, well, let's just say your foreign partners will be very, very unhappy about their investment in the Shadow Riders. The autumn wind gusts through the garden, sending leaves swirling around them. In the VA building, Sarah spots familiar faces moving into position. Veterans who aren't just here for treatment. Men and women who understand the true meaning of service and sacrifice. You're trapped in that chair, Ghost snarls, his patience clearly wearing thin. All your clever plans won't mean much if... If what? Sarah interrupts. If you assault a decorated intelligence officer on federal property? Look around, gentlemen. Look where you chose to have this conversation. She gestures to the security cameras, the memorial plaques, the VA building full of witnesses. Every word, every movement, it's all being documented. The only question is whether that documentation gets filed away. She pauses meaningfully. Or gets sent to some very interested parties. Kane's face shows the first real trace of fear, as he realizes the trap he's walked into. The Shadow Riders aren't just facing a disabled veteran. They're facing someone who has spent decades playing chess while others played checkers. Inside a secure command center, hidden beneath the Pentagon's least remarkable office building, Colonel Marcus Hayes stands before a group of intelligence analysts, evaluating real-time data from ongoing operations. The room's blue-tinted screens cast an ethereal glow across his weathered face as he processes information that would make most people's heads spin. His attention snaps to a specific alert pattern, one he's only seen twice before in his 25-year career. Status report, he commands, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has handled more classified operations than most people know exist. The analyst's fingers fly across keyboards, bringing up multiple feeds from Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden. Shadow Riders MC, sir, Lieutenant Chen reports, her eyes never leaving her screens. They've breached the security perimeter of a restricted federal facility, but that's not why we're getting alerts. She pulls up a specific protocol activation sequence. Major Cooper's failsafe just activated. All her contingency measures are going live. Colonel Hayes straightens, his expression shifting from professional concern to focused intensity. Sarah, he mutters, already moving toward the secure communications terminal. Few people know that Sarah Cooper isn't just another intelligence officer. She's the architect of Project Nighthawk, an operation so classified its true scope is known to only a handful of people worldwide. Get me Silver Creek, Virginia's secure line, he orders, watching as more data pours in. And somebody tell me why the hell a backwater motorcycle gang is stupid enough to threaten our top covert intelligence advisor. The command center erupts into controlled chaos as multiple systems activate simultaneously. On their screens, they watch the Shadow Riders surrounding Sarah's wheelchair, unaware they're being monitored by some of the most sophisticated surveillance systems ever developed. Sir, another analyst calls out, we're picking up increased chatter on known Shadow Rider frequencies. They're calling in reinforcements, but... He pauses, double-checking his data. There's something else. They're receiving instructions from an encrypted source. Pattern matches known foreign intelligence protocols. Hayes' jaw tightens. They're not just acting on their own. Someone put them up to this, someone who knows about tomorrow's briefing. He reaches for the secure phone as it connects to Silver Creek. Dr. Rivera, Colonel Hayes, initiate protocol echo. Now. Throughout Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden, hidden systems quietly activate. Security cameras that appeared normal begin operating on entirely different frequencies. Satellite coverage shifts, focusing more advanced monitoring capabilities on the area, and in various positions around the garden, certain veterans who aren't just there for treatment begin moving with practiced precision. Sir, Lieutenant Chen interrupts, Major Cooper's data package just hit our secure servers. Everything she's collected on Shadow Rider operations, their foreign connections, the shipping manifests. She lets out a low whistle. Sir, this is bigger than we thought. They're not just running contraband. They're part of something larger. Hayes studies the incoming data, his expression darkening. They're being used as cover for a foreign intelligence operation, and they just walked right into the middle of our counterplay. He turns to his senior tactical officer. How fast can we get a response team to Silver Creek? 30 minutes by air, sir, but... The officer checks another screen. We might not need to. Look who's already in position. Hayes allows himself a small smile as he recognizes certain faces in the VA facility's security feeds. Sarah Cooper hadn't just been collecting intelligence. She'd been quietly assembling a response team of her own, comprising veterans whose service records were anything but ordinary. Major Cooper's not just gathering intelligence on them, Lieutenant Chen realizes, watching the patterns emerge in the data. She's been setting up this confrontation. The Shadow Riders think they're springing a trap, but they're the ones being trapped, Hayes finishes. Classic Sarah. She's not just protecting classified intelligence. She's using it as bait. He turns to his communications officer. Get me a direct line to our assets in Silver Creek. If the Shadow Riders are working with foreign intelligence, we need to contain this before it escalates. On their monitors, they watch as Kane checks his phone, seeing the first effects of Sarah's contingency measures. Financial accounts freezing, data packages releasing to specific servers, carefully crafted evidence making its way to various law enforcement agencies. Sir, an analyst calls out, we're picking up movement around Silver Creek. Multiple vehicles with signature matches to known foreign intelligence assets. They're converging on the area. Hayes processes this information, understanding its implications. They're not just after whatever intelligence they think Sarah has. They're trying to clean up their own operation. He reaches for his secure phone again. This just became a national security situation. Authorize our Silver Creek assets for full tactical response, and someone get me the director. She needs to know the Shadow Riders just handed us an opportunity to roll up an entire foreign intelligence network. Through their feeds, they watch as Sarah Cooper calmly faces down the Shadow Riders, playing her part in an operation that's been months in the making. What looks like a simple intimidation attempt is actually the culmination of a carefully orchestrated counterintelligence operation. Sarah, you clever devil, Hayes mutters, watching the pieces fall into place. You didn't just anticipate this. You planned for it. The command center continues monitoring as events in Silver Creek accelerate toward a confrontation that will have implications far beyond a simple standoff in a veterans memorial garden. The Shadow Riders thought they were targeting a vulnerable intelligence officer. Instead, they've walked into the middle of one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations in recent history. Back in Silver Creek, Kane's demeanor shifts as he processes the implications of Sarah's words. His phone buzzes again. More alerts about compromised accounts, exposed operations, carefully hidden connections suddenly laid bare to certain agencies' scrutiny. You have no idea what you're involving yourself in, Kane growls, but the threat in his voice is tempered now by something else. Fear. Not of Sarah, but of the people who tasked him with this operation. Some things are bigger than your precious intelligence games. Sarah adjusts her wheelchair slightly, maintaining tactical positioning. Through the VA building's windows, she spots Thomas Chen coordinating with other veterans, their movements carrying the unmistakable precision of special operations training. Dr. Rivera stands by her office window, one hand pressed to her secure earpiece, nodding at whatever instructions she's receiving. "That shipping container at Port Andrews," Sarah continues calmly, "the one with the modified manifest? Did you really think changing the paperwork would be enough? That no one would notice the specialized equipment hidden under all that legitimate cargo?" Ghost takes a threatening step forward, but Kane holds up a hand, stopping him. The Shadow Riders' leader is starting to understand just how thoroughly they've been played. "Those foreign partners of yours," Sarah's voice carries just enough edge to make Kane flinch. "The ones who provided all that lovely new equipment, all those untraceable accounts. They're not known for their forgiveness when operations are compromised. And right now, every piece of evidence I've collected is being processed by systems they can't reach." The autumn wind picks up, sending leaves skittering across the memorial plaques. More Shadow Riders' bikes rumble through the gates, reinforcements arriving too late to change the game's outcome. Sarah notes their formation, their equipment, the subtle signs that mark them as more than simple gang members. "You think you're so clever," Ghost snarls, his massive frame coiled with tension. "Sitting here in your chair playing your intelligence games. But you're trapped here with us, and all your fancy evidence won't mean much if..." "If what?" A new voice cuts through the garden. Dr. Patricia Rivera stands at the VA building's entrance, her white coat concealing the tactical vest Sarah knows she's wearing. "If you assault a federal intelligence officer on restricted property, in front of multiple witnesses, with every camera in a 5-block radius recording..." Kane's phone buzzes again. The color drains from his face as he reads whatever message has just arrived. "Sir," he says into a concealed mic, forgetting operational security in his growing panic. "The situation is compromised. She knows about..." "About Operation Silverfish?" Sarah interrupts. "About the real purpose of those mountain pass routes? About why certain foreign intelligence services are so interested in a motorcycle gang's shipping operations?" She allows herself a small smile. "Or about the fact that you're not really in charge of the Shadow Riders at all, just a puppet for people who wouldn't think twice about eliminating loose ends?" Through the garden's gates, Sarah spots unmarked vehicles taking up position, not local law enforcement, but something else entirely. The kind of response teams that don't officially exist. Thomas Chen and other veterans have quietly established a perimeter, their casual poses belying their tactical positioning. "Last chance," Sarah says, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Walk away now, and maybe those foreign partners of yours won't realize just how completely you've compromised their operation. Stay, and every piece of intelligence I've gathered goes public. Every connection, every operation, every dirty little secret." Kane's expression shifts from fear to desperate calculation. Ghost's hand twitches toward his jacket, but Sarah's next words freeze him in place. "That weapon you're reaching for?" She keeps her voice conversational. "The one with the modified serial number that matches a shipment that disappeared from a military base 3 months ago? There's already a full ballistics report on it in my files. One wrong move, and every federal agency in the country will know exactly where their missing equipment went." The garden falls silent, except for the whisper of wind through the memorial flags. Kane looks around, finally seeing what Sarah has seen all along. They're not just surrounded by cameras and witnesses. They're surrounded by veterans whose casual poses mask years of specialized training, all of them watching, waiting, ready to respond the moment the situation changes. "Stand down," Kane finally orders, his voice hoarse. "Everyone stand down." He looks at Sarah, real fear in his eyes now. "This isn't over." "Actually, Mr. Kane," Sarah responds, noting multiple tactical teams moving into final position. "I think it is. The only question is whether you're smart enough to understand exactly how over it really is." At a classified forward operating base in Nevada, Commander Alexandra "Alex" Reeves stands before a bank of monitors, her scarred hands gripped tightly behind her back. As former commander of the military's most secretive cyber warfare unit, she recognizes the patterns unfolding across her screens. patterns that shouldn't be possible without insider knowledge of their most classified protocols. "Sit, Rep," she commands, watching as Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden appears on multiple feeds. The tactical response team she'd personally trained with Sarah Cooper years ago is already moving into position, their movements invisible to untrained eyes. "Shadow Riders are compromised, ma'am," Lieutenant Torres reports, his fingers flying across 3 keyboards simultaneously. "Major Cooper's fail-safe protocols just activated every surveillance system within 50 miles and—" He pauses, double-checking his readings. "We're picking up signature matches for known foreign operative communications." Alex's jaw tightens. She remembers Sarah Cooper from their days in military intelligence, the brilliant tactician who'd sacrificed her mobility saving an entire squad from an IED. What most people didn't know was that Sarah's wheelchair hadn't ended her service. It had simply changed how she fought her battles. "The Shadow Riders just triggered something bigger than they realize," Alex mutters, watching as more data pours in. "Signal analysis. Break down those foreign communications. I want to know who's pulling their strings." The command center erupts into focused activity as specialized systems begin processing the intercepted signals. On their screens, they watch Kane and his men surrounding Sarah's wheelchair, unaware they're being monitored by some of the most sophisticated surveillance technology ever developed. "Commander," another analyst calls out, "we're picking up movement patterns consistent with foreign tactical teams. They're converging on Silver Creek from multiple directions." Alex processes this information, her cybernetics-enhanced left eye scanning through data faster than any human could process. They're not just after whatever intelligence they think Sarah has. They're trying to clean up their entire operation. She turns to her communications officer. "Get me a direct line to Colonel Hayes at Pentagon Command and activate our rapid response teams. Silver Creek is about to become a very interesting place." The tactical displays show multiple converging threats: the Shadow Riders at the Garden, foreign operatives moving into position around town, and local law enforcement completely unaware they're about to be caught in the middle of a classified intelligence operation. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres interrupts, "Major Cooper's data package just hit our secure servers. This—" He lets out a low whistle. "This is way bigger than a motorcycle gang running contraband. The Shadow Riders, they're just the visible part. Look at these shipping manifests, these financial transfers." Alex studies the incoming data, her enhanced eye processing patterns that would take others hours to recognize. Sarah hasn't just been gathering intelligence. She's been mapping an entire network. The Shadow Riders, the foreign operators, the compromised shipping routes. It's all connected. Her secure phone buzzes. Colonel Hayes from Pentagon Command. "Alex," his voice carries urgency, "tell me you're seeing this." "Seeing it, processing it, and already moving assets into position," she responds, watching as more tactical teams quietly converge on Silver Creek. Sarah's not just protecting classified intelligence, she's using it as bait to expose something bigger. "The Shadow Riders think they're springing a trap," Hayes agrees, "but they're the ones being trapped. Classic Sarah. She's been 10 steps ahead this whole time." Through their feeds, they watch as Kane checks his phone, seeing the first effects of Sarah's contingency measures: financial accounts freezing, data packages releasing to specific servers, carefully crafted evidence making its way to various law enforcement agencies. "Sir," Alex addresses Hayes, "we're picking up increased chatter from the foreign operators. They're realizing their assets are compromised. Permission to initiate protocol blackout?" There's a pause as Hayes considers the implications. Protocol blackout would effectively cut off all unauthorized communications in and out of Silver Creek, trapping not just the Shadow Riders, but any foreign operatives in the area. "Granted," Hayes responds, "but Alex, keep our people invisible as long as possible. Sarah's playing a deeper game here. Let's not show our hand until we have to." Alex allows herself a grim smile. "Understood, sir. Though knowing Sarah, she's probably already factored our response into her plans." The command center continues monitoring as events in Silver Creek accelerate toward what promises to be a very interesting confrontation. The Shadow Riders thought they were intimidating a disabled veteran. Instead, they've walked into the middle of one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations ever conceived. Time to remind some people, Alex mutters, watching Sarah calmly face down her would-be intimidators. Why you don't underestimate intelligence officers, wheelchair or not. Inside the VA building's secure office, Dr. Patricia Rivera maintains her calm professional demeanor while coordinating with multiple agencies through her encrypted communication system. Her background as a former Navy medical officer had made her the perfect choice to help Sarah Cooper establish this facility as more than just a veterans treatment center. Activity at all entry points, she reports quietly into her secure communication. Foreign operators moving into position around the perimeter. They're using local surveillance blind spots, ones that shouldn't be in any civilian database. Acknowledged, Commander Reeves' voice comes through her earpiece. Keep monitoring. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Sarah needs them to think they still have tactical advantage. Through her office window, Patricia watches as Thomas Chen and other seemingly ordinary veterans continue their carefully choreographed movements around the garden. Each one had been handpicked by Sarah months ago. Decorated Special Forces operators who'd chosen to remain in service to their country in less visible ways. Her secure tablet lights up with incoming data, satellite feeds, surveillance reports, tactical assessments. The Shadow Riders' reinforcements are still arriving, their formation suggesting military training that no ordinary motorcycle gang should possess. Dr. Rivera, Colonel Hayes' voice comes through her secure line. We're tracking multiple foreign tactical teams converging on your location. At least 3 different agencies, all using Shadow Riders' activities as cover. How's Sarah holding up? Patricia studies her friend's composed posture in the garden. Most people see Sarah's wheelchair and assume vulnerability. They don't see the mind that's already calculated every possible outcome of this confrontation. She's got them exactly where she wants them, Patricia responds, watching Kane's growing uncertainty. The Shadow Riders are starting to realize they're not in control, but their foreign handlers are still in the dark. Though that's about to change. Her tablet alerts her to new developments. Commander Reeves' cyber warfare unit has begun implementing Protocol Blackout. Around Silver Creek, unauthorized communications are being systematically cut off, though to any observer, it would appear to be normal network congestion. Movement at the north entrance. Thomas Chen's voice comes through her comm. 2 unmarked vans, tactical equipment signatures. They're trying to look like civilian contractors, but their gear is military grade. Patricia checks her tactical display. The foreign operators are establishing a perimeter, likely preparing to extract their compromised assets once they realize the full scope of Sarah's operation. What they don't realize is that their very presence is confirming intelligence that Sarah has spent months gathering. Dr. Rivera, her receptionist's voice carries the subtle stress signal they'd established months ago. We have some unusual visitors in the main lobby. They're asking about building maintenance access. Acknowledged, Patricia responds calmly. Implement Visitor Protocol Delta. It's a simple phrase that activates a complex series of security measures throughout the facility. Doors that appeared normal now require multiple levels of authentication. Surveillance systems shift to more sophisticated monitoring protocols. Through her window, she watches as Kane becomes increasingly agitated, checking his phone as more of Sarah's carefully planned contingencies activate. The Shadow Riders' leader is realizing too late that he's not just dealing with a disabled veteran. He's facing someone who has orchestrated every moment of this confrontation. Commander Reeves, Patricia reports, noting new movement patterns around the facility. Foreign tactical teams are beginning their approach. They're using standard infiltration protocols, the kind that suggest military training. Copy that, Alex responds. Keep your people in position. Let them think they're being subtle. Every move they make is confirming Sarah's intelligence about their operations. Patricia watches as more seemingly ordinary veterans take up casual positions around the garden. Each one had been specifically chosen for this operation, their ordinary appearances masking years of specialized training. Time check, Colonel Hayes' voice comes through. How long until the Shadow Riders' foreign handlers realize their operation is compromised? Patricia checks her tactical display, watching as Sarah's carefully laid plans continue to unfold. Based on their current communications patterns, 5 minutes, maybe less. Once Protocol Blackout fully engages, they'll know something's wrong. That's when this gets interesting. Around Silver Creek, multiple forces converge on the Veterans Memorial Garden, each thinking they understand the situation. None of them realize they're all playing parts in an operation that Sarah Cooper has spent months orchestrating, every move calculated to expose not just a criminal enterprise but an entire network of foreign intelligence operations. Remember, Patricia tells her staff through their secure channel, no matter what happens next, follow Major Cooper's lead. She's been preparing for this moment longer than any of us realize. Sarah Cooper's mind calculates probabilities as she keeps Kane and his Shadow Riders locked in a psychological standoff. Through years of intelligence operations, she'd learned that the most dangerous moment in any confrontation is when your opponent realizes they've been outmaneuvered. Some accept defeat gracefully, others lash out with desperate violence. "Our foreign friends aren't very happy with you, Kane," she says calmly, noting Ghost's increasingly agitated movements. "Those accounts I just froze, the ones you thought were untraceable, they're already tracking the money back to some very interesting sources." Kane's hand twitches toward his concealed mic, a subtle tell that confirms Sarah's assessment. He's not just receiving orders from his foreign handlers, he's waiting for permission to escalate the situation. Around the garden, her carefully positioned veterans continue their choreographed movements, each one ready to respond the moment the situation changes. "You think you're so clever," Ghost snarls, his massive frame coiled with barely contained violence. "Playing your intelligence games from that chair. But we've got this place surrounded. No one's coming to help you." Sarah allows herself a small smile. "Look around, Ghost. Really look. Notice anything strange about those maintenance workers by the east gate? Or that delivery van that's been parked across the street for the last 20 minutes? Kane's eyes narrow as he finally starts seeing what Sarah has orchestrated. The seemingly random people moving through the garden aren't random at all. The casual patterns of movement mask tactical positioning that no civilian would recognize. Through her earpiece, she hears Dr. Rivera's calm voice. "Foreign tactical teams are making their move, Sarah. 3 separate groups, using Shadow Riders' activity as cover. Commander Reeves has authorized Protocol Blackout." Perfect timing, Sarah thinks. She'd calculated the foreign operators would show their hand once they realized the Shadow Riders had lost control of the situation. Their presence here would confirm months of carefully gathered intelligence about their operations on U.S. soil. "Your phone's going to stop working in about 30 seconds, she tells Kane, watching his expression carefully. "So will your radio, your backup communications, everything. That's when your real employers are going to realize just how completely you've compromised their operation." Kane's face shows the first real trace of fear as his phone suddenly loses signal. Around the garden, other Shadow Riders check their devices, finding them mysteriously dead. Through the VA building's windows, Sarah spots Thomas Chen giving the prearranged signal. Foreign tactical teams are moving into their final positions. "What did you do?" Kane demands, but his voice has lost its threatening edge. He's beginning to understand that the wheelchair-bound veteran before him isn't just another intelligence officer. She's someone who has orchestrated every moment of this confrontation. "I didn't do anything," Sarah responds calmly. "I just created a situation where certain foreign intelligence agencies would reveal themselves. You see, Kane, you're not really the target here. You and your Shadow Riders. You're just the bait." Ghost takes an aggressive step forward, but freezes as multiple veterans suddenly shift position, their casual poses transforming into combat-ready stances. Each one had been handpicked by Sarah, former Special Forces operators who understood the value of appearing harmless until the moment required otherwise. "Those shipping manifests you've been running through Port Andrews?" Sarah continues, watching Kane's growing realization. "The modified equipment? The classified intelligence you thought you were after? It was all designed to attract attention, specific attention from specific agencies that shouldn't be operating on U.S. soil." Through her tactical comm, she hears Commander Reeves' update. "Protocol Blackout fully engaged, Sarah. Foreign operators are cut off from their command structure. They're about to do something very stupid or very smart. Last chance, Kane," Sarah offers, noting the subtle signs of pressure building around the garden. "Walk away now. Let us deal with your employers, and maybe you'll only face domestic charges." Stay and you'll be here when 3 different foreign intelligence agencies realize they've walked into a counterintelligence operation. The autumn wind gusts through the memorial flags as Kane faces the most important decision of his life. Around them, the carefully choreographed pieces of Sarah Cooper's operation move into their final positions, preparing for the moment when desperate men with foreign loyalties realize they've been outmaneuvered on every level. Inside a sleek black tactical van parked 3 blocks from the Veterans Memorial Garden, Viktor Petrov slams his fist against a monitoring console. The Shadow Rider's compromised communications were just the beginning. Now all his team's secure channels are going dark, one by one. "Status report," he demands in accented English, watching as his carefully positioned tactical teams lose contact with their command structure. A former Spetsnaz operator turned private contractor, Viktor had planned dozens of operations like this. But something about today feels different. Wrong. All communications are being systematically blocked, his tech specialist reports, fingers flying across keyboards. Not just standard frequencies. Even our backup channels are going dark. This isn't normal signal interference. Through their remaining surveillance feeds, they watch the confrontation in the garden. Major Sarah Cooper sits calmly in her wheelchair, facing down the Shadow Riders with a confidence that makes Viktor's combat instincts scream warnings. She knows, he realizes, studying her positioning, the way she's oriented her chair, how the seemingly random veterans in the garden are actually establishing interlocking fields of fire. Ona nas ždala. She's been waiting for us. In another unmarked vehicle, concealed in a delivery company's parking lot, Colonel Wei Zhao reaches the same conclusion. His MSS training helps him recognize the signs. This isn't just a confrontation between a motorcycle gang and an intelligence officer. This is a carefully orchestrated trap. "Pull back," he orders his teams in Mandarin. Now, before his communications cut off mid-sentence as protocol blackout claims another frequency. Through his high-powered optics, he watches Sarah Cooper calmly talking to Kane, knowing her words are deliberately pushing the Shadow Rider's leader toward panic. A third team, operating from a modified maintenance truck, faces similar realizations. Their leader, Marcus Cross, former British SAS now working for private interests, recognizes the tactical positioning of the veterans around the garden. "She's not just gathering intelligence," he mutters into a dead radio. "She's forcing us to expose ourselves." Viktor's team spots movement. More unmarked vehicles taking up position around Silver Creek. These aren't local law enforcement or even federal agents. The vehicle's modifications, the operator's movement patterns, everything screams, elite tactical unit. The wheelchair. Viktor's senior tactical officer suddenly understands. We assumed it made her vulnerable. But she's been using it, using everything, to make us underestimate her. Through their remaining surveillance equipment, they watch as more pieces of Sarah Cooper's operation become clear. The veterans in the garden aren't random patients. They're carefully selected operators positioned to respond to any threat. The VA facility's security isn't just monitoring the situation, it's coordinating a multi-agency response. "Look at the pattern," Colonel Zhao tells his team, recognizing the tactical brilliance too late. "She didn't just anticipate our response, she planned for it. Every move we make confirms her intelligence about our operations." In his vehicle, Marcus Cross checks his final secure channel, finding it dead like all the others. "Bloody hell," he mutters, watching Sarah maneuver Kane into an increasingly desperate position. She's not trying to stop a gang intimidation. She's exposing every foreign intelligence operation in the region. Viktor's tactical teams report similar communications failures across Silver Creek. Their carefully planned extraction routes are being systematically cut off. Even their emergency protocols are failing, blocked by systems that shouldn't exist outside the highest levels of military intelligence. "We have a choice," Viktor tells his team, watching as more covert response units take up position around the garden. "We can retreat now, sacrifice the Shadow Riders, and maintain plausible deniability. Orient. Or we walk right into whatever trap she's setting," his tactical officer finishes. The woman in the wheelchair, she's not the target. She's the spider, and we're all walking into her web. Through their various surveillance positions, Three separate foreign tactical teams watch as Sarah Cooper orchestrates a confrontation that will expose years of covert operations. Each team leader faces the same decision: retreat and abandon their compromised assets, or intervene and risk confirming everything Sarah's operation is designed to prove. In the garden, Sarah continues her careful psychological manipulation of Kane, knowing that every moment she keeps the Shadow Riders engaged gives her tactical teams more time to position themselves. The foreign operators can only watch as their carefully constructed network of influence begins to unravel, all because they made the mistake of targeting a wheelchair-bound veteran who turned out to be far more dangerous than anyone suspected. In the Pentagon's Secure Command Center, Colonel Hayes monitors multiple feeds as Sarah Cooper's operation enters its most critical phase. The Shadow Riders' reinforcements have arrived in force, but their movements betray growing uncertainty. Around them, foreign tactical teams struggle with communications blackouts, their carefully planned extraction routes systematically cut off. Status update, Hayes demands, watching as Commander Reeves's cyber warfare unit implements the final stages of protocol blackout. On his screen, Silver Creek transforms into a data dead zone. No unauthorized communications in or out. Foreign operators are scrambling, sir, Lieutenant Chen reports through their secure channel. Three distinct groups all trying to maintain operational security while their communications fail. Russian private contractors to the north, Chinese MSS to the east, and what looks like British private interests moving in from the west. Hayes allows himself a grim smile. Sarah hasn't just exposed a criminal enterprise. She's forced three separate foreign intelligence operations to reveal themselves. Through their surveillance feeds, they watch as Kane realizes just how completely he's lost control of the situation. Commander Reeves, Hayes addresses the Nevada Command Center. What's the status of our containment teams? Ready on all approaches, sir, Alex responds. Quick reaction force is in position. The moment any foreign operator makes a move, we can lock down the entire area. Sarah's got them boxed in perfectly. They can't retreat without confirming their presence, can't advance without walking into our trap. In the garden, Sarah continues her psychological warfare against Kane, each carefully chosen word pushing the Shadow Riders' leader closer to panic. Through their feeds, Hayes watches the foreign tactical teams realize their predicament too late. Sir, Lieutenant Torres interrupts, we're picking up emergency protocols from the foreign teams. They're trying to activate backup extraction plans, but Sarah already anticipated those, Hayes finishes. Every contingency, every fallback position, she's been mapping their protocols for months. He turns to his communications officer. Get me a direct line to the director. She needs to see how this plays out. The command center's main screen shows multiple threat vectors converging on the Veterans Memorial Garden. The Shadow Riders, now numbering nearly 20 bikes, maintain their intimidating presence while their foreign handlers realize the true nature of their situation. Look at their positioning. Alex's voice carries professional admiration. Sarah's got the Shadow Riders focusing on her wheelchair, making them think they have tactical advantage. Meanwhile, our people are already in position to neutralize any foreign intervention. Hayes watches as Dr. Rivera coordinates from inside the VA facility. Her medical staff secretly comprised of highly trained operators ready to respond the moment the situation changes. Thomas Chen's veterans maintain their casual poses, their seemingly random movements actually establishing overlapping fields of control. Directors online, sir, the communications officer reports. Hayes takes the secure line, knowing the next few moments will determine the success of months of careful planning. Madam Director, you're watching this? Hayes asks, though he already knows the answer. Few operations reach this level of strategic importance without the highest levels of oversight. Every moment, Colonel, the director responds. Sarah Cooper has orchestrated quite a performance, not just exposing the Shadow Riders, but using them to reveal foreign intelligence operations we've been trying to track for months. Through their feeds, they watch as Kane checks his dead phone again, his face showing the fear of someone who realizes they've walked into a trap they can't escape. Around the garden, foreign tactical teams maintain their positions, each handler knowing that any overt action will confirm their unauthorized presence on U.S. soil. Should we move to contain the situation? Hayes asks, though he suspects he knows the director's answer. Not yet, she responds. Let Sarah finish this her way. She hasn't just exposed these operations. She's forcing them to expose themselves. By the time this is over, we'll have confirmation of every foreign intelligence network operating in the region. In the garden, Sarah continues her careful psychological manipulation of Kane, knowing that every moment she keeps the Shadow Riders engaged gives her tactical teams more time to position themselves. The foreign operators can only watch as their carefully constructed network of influence begins to unravel, all because they made the mistake of targeting a wheelchair-bound veteran who turned out to be far more dangerous than anyone suspected. In the Pentagon's Secure Command Center, Colonel Hayes monitors multiple feeds as Sarah Cooper's operation enters its most critical phase. The Shadow Riders' reinforcements have arrived in force, but their movements betray growing uncertainty. Around them, foreign tactical teams struggle with communications blackouts, their carefully planned extraction routes systematically cut off. Status update, Hayes demands, watching as Commander Reeves's cyber warfare unit implements the final stages of protocol blackout. On his screen, Silver Creek transforms into a data dead zone. No unauthorized communications in or out. Foreign operators are scrambling, sir, Lieutenant Chen reports through their secure channel. 3 distinct groups all trying to maintain operational security while their communications fail. Russian private contractors to the north, Chinese MSS to the east, and what looks like British private interests moving in from the west. Hayes allows himself a grim smile. Sarah hasn't just exposed a criminal enterprise. She's forced 3 separate foreign intelligence operations to reveal themselves. Through their surveillance feeds, they watch as Kane realizes just how completely he's lost control of the situation. Commander Reeves, Hayes addresses the Nevada Command Center. What's the status of our containment teams? Ready on all approaches, sir, Alex responds. Quick reaction force is in position. The moment any foreign operator makes a move, we can lock down the entire area. Sarah's got them boxed in perfectly. They can't retreat without confirming their presence, can't advance without walking into our trap. In the garden, Sarah continues her psychological warfare against Kane, each carefully chosen word pushing the Shadow Riders' leader closer to panic. Through their feeds, Hayes watches the foreign tactical teams realize their predicament too late. Sir, Lieutenant Torres interrupts, we're picking up emergency protocols from the foreign teams. They're trying to activate backup extraction plans, but Sarah already anticipated those, Hayes finishes. Every contingency, every fallback position, she's been mapping their protocols for months. He turns to his communications officer. Get me a direct line to the director. She needs to see how this plays out. The command center's main screen shows multiple threat vectors converging on the Veterans Memorial Garden. The Shadow Riders, now numbering nearly 20 bikes, maintain their intimidating presence while their foreign handlers realize the true nature of their situation. Look at their positioning. Alex's voice carries professional admiration. Sarah's got the Shadow Riders focusing on her wheelchair, making them think they have tactical advantage. Meanwhile, our people are already in position to neutralize any foreign intervention. Hayes watches as Dr. Rivera coordinates from inside the VA facility, her medical staff secretly comprised of highly trained operators ready to respond the moment the situation changes. Thomas Chen's veterans maintain their casual poses, their seemingly random movements actually establishing overlapping fields of control. Directors online, sir, the communications officer reports. Hayes takes the secure line, knowing the next few moments will determine the success of months of careful planning. Madam Director, you're watching this? Hayes asks, though he already knows the answer. Few operations reach this level of strategic importance without the highest levels of oversight. Every moment, Colonel, the director responds. Sarah Cooper has orchestrated quite a performance, not just exposing the Shadow Riders, but using them to reveal foreign intelligence operations we've been trying to track for months. Through their feeds, they watch as Kane checks his dead phone again, his face showing the fear of someone who realizes they've walked into a trap they can't escape. Around the garden, foreign tactical teams maintain their positions, each handler knowing that any overt action will confirm their unauthorized presence on U.S. soil. Should we move to contain the situation? Hayes asks, though he suspects he knows the director's answer. Not yet, she responds. Let Sarah finish this her way. She hasn't just exposed these operations, she's forcing them to expose themselves. By the time this is over, we'll have confirmation of every foreign intelligence network operating in the region. The command center continues monitoring as Sarah Cooper, seemingly vulnerable in her wheelchair, orchestrates one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations in recent history. The Shadow Riders thought they were intimidating a disabled veteran. Instead, they've become pawns in a game that will reshape the intelligence landscape of the entire region. Sometimes, Hayes muses, watching Sarah calmly face down her would-be intimidators, the most dangerous predator is the one your target never sees coming. The autumn wind carries fallen leaves across the Veterans Memorial Garden as Kane faces the most crucial decision of his criminal career. Ghost, his massive frame coiled with frustrated violence, watches their reinforcements continue to arrive. But something has changed. The Shadow Riders' usual intimidating presence feels hollow now, like actors who've suddenly realized they're in the wrong play. Think very carefully about your next move, Sarah says calmly, her wheelchair positioned to maintain perfect sightlines across the garden. Your foreign handlers can't help you anymore. Their communications are dead, their extraction routes are compromised, and their very presence here has confirmed everything we needed to know about their operations. Through the VA building's windows, Dr. Rivera monitors multiple tactical feeds, watching as foreign operators realize the depth of their predicament. Thomas Chen and his veterans maintain their casual poses, but their positions have created an invisible net, ready to close the moment anyone makes the wrong move. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Kane's voice carries desperate edge now. These people, they don't just kill you. They erase you. Everything you are, everything you've ever been, gone. Sarah allows herself a small smile. Look around, Kane. Really look. Notice how those maintenance workers move? The way that delivery van is positioned? You're not just surrounded by cameras and witnesses. You're surrounded by people who've spent their entire careers dealing with exactly the kind of threats you're talking about. Ghost takes an aggressive step forward, but freezes as multiple veterans suddenly shift position, their casual stances transforming into something far more practiced. Each one had been handpicked for this operation, their ordinary appearances masking years of specialized training. "Sir," Ghost growls at Kane, "we need to move. Now before..." "Before what?" Sarah interrupts. "Before your handlers realize you've compromised their entire operation? Before they decide you're a liability that needs to be eliminated? Those foreign partners you're so afraid of, they're trapped here just like you. Every move they make, every attempt to extract their assets just confirms their unauthorized presence on U.S. soil." Through their dead communications equipment, the Shadow Riders watch as more unmarked vehicles take up position around the garden. These aren't local law enforcement or even federal agents. The vehicle's modifications, the operator's movement patterns, everything screams elite tactical unit. "Last chance," Sarah offers, noting the subtle signs of pressure building around them. "Surrender now, cooperate with our investigation, and maybe, just maybe, we can protect you from what happens when foreign intelligence agencies decide to clean up loose ends." Kane's face shows the moment of decision, the instant when a man realizes every choice except surrender leads to destruction. Around the garden, Sarah's carefully positioned pieces maintain their readiness, prepared for either outcome. "Stand down," Kane finally orders, his voice hoarse with defeat. "Everyone stand down." He looks at Sarah, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. "You played us. All of us. The wheelchair, the vulnerable intelligence officer. It was all bait." Sarah watches as the Shadow Riders begin standing down, their attempted intimidation crumbling in the face of a superior operation. Through her tactical comm, she hears Commander Reeves's update. Foreign teams are initiating emergency protocols. They're going to try one last desperate move. "Actually, Kane," Sarah responds, as multiple tactical teams emerge from their concealed positions around the garden. "You played yourselves. You saw a wheelchair and assumed vulnerability. Your foreign handlers saw an opportunity and assumed easy access to classified intelligence." She allows herself a moment of satisfaction as reality closes in around them. "Instead, you all walked into a trap that's been months in the making." The garden falls silent, except for the whisper of wind through the memorial flags and the subtle sounds of tactical teams taking up final positions. The Shadow Riders' attempted intimidation has transformed into something else entirely, the culmination of one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations in recent history. Sarah Cooper, the wheelchair-bound veteran they thought they could intimidate, has orchestrated a performance that will reshape the intelligence landscape of the entire region. And as federal tactical teams begin securing the area, as foreign operators realize the full scope of their exposure, as the Shadow Riders face the consequences of their choices, one truth becomes undeniably clear. Some battles aren't won with weapons or violence. Some battles are won by letting your enemies think they're the predators, right up until the moment they realize they've been the prey all along. Inside a secure Pentagon briefing room the next morning, Sarah Cooper's wheelchair sits at the head of a polished conference table as she delivers her report to a select group of intelligence officials. The events at Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden have reshaped the intelligence landscape overnight. The Shadow Riders' attempted intimidation provided exactly what we needed, Sarah explains, bringing up classified surveillance footage on multiple screens. Their foreign handlers had no choice but to expose themselves once protocol blackout engaged. 3 separate intelligence networks all compromised because they thought a wheelchair made me an easy target. Director Elizabeth Chen, the highest-ranking official present, studies the evidence with careful attention. And the classified intelligence they thought they were after? Never existed. Sarah allows herself a satisfied smile. We created a data package specifically designed to attract their attention. Every document, every file was crafted to make them think they'd found a vulnerability in our security. Instead, they revealed their entire operational structure trying to access it. The briefing room's screens display multiple feeds from the previous day's operation. Kane and his Shadow Riders being taken into custody, foreign tactical teams caught in their own trap, years of careful intelligence gathering culminating in a single afternoon's performance. The wheelchair was crucial, Sarah continues, noting how some officials still struggled to look directly at it. People see it and make assumptions. They lower their guard, thinking physical limitation equals vulnerability. It's amazing how much intelligence you can gather when your targets don't consider you a threat. Commander Reeves, attending virtually from her Nevada command center, adds her perspective. The cyber warfare aspect exceeded expectations. Every attempt by foreign operators to activate emergency protocols just gave us more data about their communications infrastructure. Dr. Rivera's report follows, detailing how the VA facility had been transformed into a covert operations center. The medical staff's cover was perfect, she explains. No one questions why a veterans facility would have security cameras, why patients might move in tactical patterns during their physical therapy. Thomas Chen, now revealed as the operations ground force commander, outlines how his veterans had maintained their cover. Every movement, every position was choreographed weeks in advance. The foreign operators never realized they were being surrounded by some of our most experienced tactical teams. And the Shadow Riders? Director Chen asks, though her slight smile suggests she already knows the answer. Singing like canaries, Colonel Hayes reports with satisfaction. Kane's facing federal charges, but he's more afraid of his former foreign handlers. He's offering intelligence on every operation they've run in the past 5 years. Sarah brings up more surveillance footage, showing how the garden's layout had been perfectly designed for the confrontation. The memorial plaques provided cover, the pathways created natural channels for movement, even the security cameras were positioned to force our targets into specific positions. Most importantly, she concludes, we've confirmed the presence of unauthorized foreign intelligence operations across 3 states. The Shadow Riders weren't just running contraband. They were part of a sophisticated network of influence that we can now begin dismantling. Director Chen studies Sarah with newfound respect, and all because they saw a wheelchair and thought they found an easy target. Their own prejudice became our greatest weapon. The briefing continues as Sarah outlines the operation's broader implications. Around the conference table, intelligence officials who once might have questioned a wheelchair-bound officer's capabilities now listen with undivided attention. The events at Silver Creek haven't just exposed foreign intelligence networks. They've challenged fundamental assumptions about capability and vulnerability. Remember this, Sarah tells them as the briefing concludes. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a gun or a computer or even classified intelligence. Sometimes it's letting your enemies believe exactly what they want to believe, right up until the moment that belief destroys them. The autumn sun streams through the briefing room's secure windows as Sarah Cooper, the wheelchair-bound veteran who orchestrated one of the most sophisticated counterintelligence operations in recent history, prepares to roll out to her next mission. After all, there are always more targets ready to underestimate her, always more operations waiting to be unveiled. Some battles are won long before the first shot is fired, in the quiet moments when your enemies convince themselves that you're the prey, never realizing that they're the ones being hunted all along. The Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden stands peaceful once again, the autumn sun casting long shadows across its meticulously maintained paths. A week after the confrontation that exposed 3 foreign intelligence networks, Sarah Cooper's wheelchair glides smoothly between the memorial plaques, her presence now carrying a different kind of weight among the veterans who gather here. Still hard to believe, Thomas Chen says, walking beside her in his groundskeeper's uniform that no longer needs to conceal his tactical expertise. The Shadow Riders are finished, their foreign handlers exposed, and half the intelligence community is reconsidering their assumptions about wheelchair-bound veterans. Sarah pauses near the spot where Kane had tried to intimidate her, where a single afternoon had unraveled years of covert foreign operations. People see what they expect to see, Tom. The wheelchair, the peaceful garden, the seemingly vulnerable intelligence officer. Sometimes the best disguise is the truth hiding in plain sight. Through the VA facility's windows, Dr. Rivera watches new patients arrive for treatment. Though now everyone understands that treatment can mean many things. The facility's reputation has grown, a place where veterans can find not just healing, but purpose, their skills and experience valued in ways most civilians never imagine. The foreign operators are still reeling, Patricia reports, joining them in the garden. 3 separate intelligence networks, all compromised because they made the mistake of thinking physical limitation meant vulnerability. Our counterintelligence teams are having a field day with the intelligence Kane provided. Sarah allows herself a small smile, remembering Kane's face when he finally understood just how completely he'd been outmaneuvered. The Shadow Riders thought they were predators, never realizing they were just pawns in a larger game. Their foreign handlers thought they found an easy target, never considering that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you've been trained to underestimate. The garden's flags flutter in the autumn breeze as more veterans arrive for their daily routines. Some are genuinely here for treatment, others maintain covers that no longer need to be quite so careful. The memorial plaques gleam in the sunlight, each one marking not just past service but ongoing commitment. Commander Reeves reports the cyber warfare implications are still unfolding, Thomas adds. Every emergency protocol the foreign operators tried to activate gave us more insight into their communications infrastructure. We're dismantling shadow networks we didn't even know existed a week ago. Sarah's wheelchair stops near the garden's central memorial, where fallen leaves dance in patterns that remind her of tactical formations. The wheelchair was never a limitation, she muses. It was a tool, just like everything else in our arsenal. The only difference was that our targets convinced themselves it made me vulnerable. The director wants to expand the program, Patricia reveals. Other facilities, other operations. It turns out letting your enemies underestimate you is a pretty effective strategy. Through the garden's gates, new visitors arrive. Veterans seeking treatment, intelligence officers maintaining cover, foreign operators who haven't yet realized their networks have been compromised. Sarah Cooper watches them all, knowing that somewhere in that mix are more targets ready to make the same mistake the Shadow Riders made. Some battles, she tells her colleagues as they prepare for another day of invisible warfare, are won in the mind long before they're fought in the field. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemy, but in letting them defeat themselves through their own assumptions. The Silver Creek Veterans Memorial Garden continues its quiet service, a place of healing and remembrance that hides layers of purpose beneath its peaceful surface. And at its heart, a wheelchair-bound veteran who proved that true strength isn't about physical capability, but about understanding how to turn your enemy's prejudices into weapons against themselves. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more incredible tales of justice and redemption. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Tomorrow's story will leave you absolutely speechless. You won't want to miss it. Some battles are fought with guns and bombs, others with intelligence and deception. But the most satisfying victories are often won by those who let their enemies believe exactly what they want to believe, right up until the moment that belief destroys them. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.